get started. Okay, sit yourself onto your lift and come into cross-leg position. Just sit so that your seat bones feel even. That takes a little bit of trying and experimentation with the way that you're sitting. So just have a little wriggle about, just make sure that you're feeling even at the seat bones. But not just at the seat bones, feel that you're sitting evenly at the feet. So when you draw your consciousness into your feet, does one foot feel heavier on the floor than the other, or does there feel like there's a decent levelness at the feet? Because if there's imbalance at the feet, then there's going to be imbalance everywhere else. So just adjust accordingly. Just try and stretch the heels, so flex the heels so that it's the outside edge of the foot rather than the top of the foot that connects to the ground, and then there's more chance of finding that kind of levelness. Hold on to your knees, lift up into the chest. Drawing your shoulders down away from your ears, listen to the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just soften the jaw and the tongue and the throat. Just spend a few moments listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just look at the floor 6 to 8 feet away from you, just so that you can consciously still the eyes in the sockets. Release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste, press the palms firmly together. Lengthening from the armpits into the elbows. And then with an exhalation, close your eyes. Listen to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just focusing on filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. Filling both lungs evenly. And emptying both lungs evenly. Allowing your mind to become full of the breath. Draw your chin forwards, down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area, and then release the backs of your knees down toward your backs of your palms down toward your knees. Just have the index finger and the thumb connected, stretching the other fingers away, palms facing upwards. Just a gesture of wisdom and peacefulness that we can take into our practice. And then as you raise your head, just allow your eyes to soften. So this idea of peacefulness and wisdom, it's really ahimsa, isn't it? The concept of non-violence to oneself. And sattva, the concept of honesty or truthfulness. So as we sit, that relates to how the body feels and the way that we treat the body when we practice our yoga. So we never punish the body. We practice our yoga to fill the body with consciousness. And by the end of the session, we feel light, but only if we have approached our practice with ahimsa and sattva. Just draw your chin forward, bring the chin to the chest, keeping the shoulders away from your ears. Just hold on to your knees. So ahimsa and sattva means non-violence and honesty, but non-violence, of course, doesn't necessarily just mean becoming jelly-like with our practice. We work with honesty to what our body can do. So we push ourselves far, but never too far. Lift the chin to the chest, stretching out the front of the neck. So we push ourselves with consciousness, but we never do it with vanity in mind. Bring the chin down to the chest. So we do our yoga so that the body becomes limber, so that the mind becomes tranquil. Anything else that follows is a happy coincidence. But the mental health and the physical health come together as one. With an out breath, raise the chin to the ceiling, extending the chin to the ceiling. Come back to the centre. Bring your right ear down to the right shoulder, but keeping the right shoulder away, keeping both shoulders away from your ears. So when we work in our practice, we work with consciousness. So when you bring that right ear over, does it affect your balance? Does it affect the seat bones? So just lift the torso in order to even out from the feet to the seat bones, up into the chest. Come back to the centre, left ear to left shoulder. But we also work with consciousness of our ability and our resistance, and we work with respect to those things. So we don't work with kid gloves around our resistance. We face our resistance, we acknowledge our resistance, but we don't overdo it. Come back to the right side, right ear to right shoulder, lengthening out that left side of the neck. And then back to the center, left ear to left shoulder, just stretching out the right side of the neck. Just observing your resistance, acknowledging, respecting it. Come back to the center. Hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest, elevating your heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Let's take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right side. Again, just acknowledging your resistance, acknowledging your balance from the feet to the seat bones, to the chest, to the abdomen, to the ribs, to the shoulders. Breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. Acknowledging your resistance, but rather than obsessing about it, know that it's there and draw your consciousness into areas of non-resistance. So it's not ignoring the resistance, it's working with reverence towards it, but then not obsessing about it at the same time, drawing your consciousness elsewhere. Come back to the center, hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest. Just feel how your body feels. Just draw your attention into the physical sensations of the pose. And then turn to the left. Just acknowledging how your body is feeling today. Does it feel any different to how it felt yesterday? Just acknowledge your resistance, but then draw your consciousness into areas of non-resistance. And then come back to the center. Just stretch your legs out and get your belt so that you can, again, stretch your legs with consciousness. Hold the belt around your feet, so around the ball joint of the foot, the top of the foot. I'm not sure if you can quite see on the video. Push your feet into the belt and then tighten your kneecaps. Press the shins into the floor. Turn the fronts of the shins from the little toe side to the big toe side. Lengthen from the hips and into the heels. And then elevate the heart area up towards the ceiling. Just take deep inhalations and exhalations, listening to the breath. Push your feet into the belt. Try and spread the feet apart. Try and spread the feet away from each other, pushing into the belt so that you activate the outer thighs. So if you push that little toe side of the foot really consciously into the belt, then you get that anantasana action of sucking the outer thighs inwards. So push the feet really consciously into the belt, pull firmly on the belt, but try and press that little toe side of the foot really firmly into the belt without sliding the heels towards each other anymore. Lift up into the chest. If there's no problem with your back, you can come forwards just a little, but don't come forwards too far, because you'll lose that feeling of pushing the little toe side into the belt and sucking the outer thighs in. Lift the heart area upwards. Breathing evenly, push, keeping the heels where they are and pushing the little toe side of the foot really firmly into the belt so that the outer thighs suck inwards. Lifting up into the chest. Okay, and then come back and then release the belt. So maybe that action of pushing the little toes into the belt kind of compacts the outer thighs, it sucks them inwards, and that is a good action to bring into your other poses. Come onto all fours, little fingers on the mat, on the edge of the mat, stretch the thumbs towards each other, turn your toes out as wide apart as the mat, and then come up into dog down. Press the little toe side of the foot really consciously into the floor. Suck the outer thighs in so you get this tube of toothpaste effect up into the hips. So straightening the legs, pushing the palms consciously into the floor. Lifting the tailbone, push the feet into the floor. Press the little toe side of the foot into the floor. Suck the outer thighs in and pushing the feet into the floor, lift the seat bones a little higher. Just finding those connections. Just listening to the breath. Sucking the outer thighs in, pressing the little toes into the floor. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Turn the fronts of the shins inwards. Just listen to the breath. Filling the lungs evenly on both sides, emptying the lungs evenly. Stepping your feet forward, come up into a standing position. And then come into half uttanasana with the hands on blocks. If you've got a stiff back at the moment, so coming forwards this way with blocks underneath your hands, like this. Or we're going to come to half uttanasana, but we're going to come into it with the hands on the hips. So have the feet as wide apart as the mat. Feel that the heels are turned out a little and that the big toes are closer together than the heels. So often we use the mat as our visual guide, but can you use your feeling as the visual guide? Tighten your kneecaps, turn the thighs inwards, push the inner knees away from each other, lifting the inner knees up towards the groin, hit the shins back so that your weight is in your heels, wing your elbows towards the back of the room. Hinge at the hips, come forwards, keeping the head lifted, driving the chin and the chest forwards. If you're doing half uttanasana, you can let go and just find the blocks at this stage, maintaining that lift of the chest. Otherwise, keep coming forwards, And then release the arms, hook the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, wrap your fingers around your elbows and then hang down. So just breathing, even deep inhalations and exhalations. Although we have done these poses a million times, these limbering poses, every day we come into them feels different. Today is unique. Today is a different day. Today we can do something different. Today we can do something more. Today we can change things. And so coming back into these limbering poses at the beginning of our practice just orientates the body, tells us where it is this morning, and it tells us how the body is reacting. Is there one side that's less active than the other? How does the body feel? Where is there resistance? Where is there sensations of freedom and extension? And try to homogenize the resistance and the freedom. And then release your hands down toward your knees, and then bring your hands into your hips, bend your knees on the way up if you need to, and then come up into a standing position. And then just come into Tadasana. So be in Tadasana with the inner edge of the feet together, tighten the kneecaps. Now, tightening kneecaps isn't right for everyone. It helps you to straighten your legs, but pushing the kneecap through to the back of the knee. If you've got knee problems, that can exacerbate, it can help, but it can also exacerbate a knee problem. So rather than really, so you lift, in that case, you lift the kneecap rather than push it through to the back of the knee. So just see that differentiation. Just everyone, just lift the kneecap. And then push the kneecap through to the back of the knee. So it's two different actions. Just see how that feels and observe how that feels. Same thing really. Tuck the tailbone in, lift the chest upwards. Just go back to the feet. Is there balance? Press the little toe side of the foot into the floor, suck the outer thighs in, so that you can suck up into the chest, in that tube of toothpaste effect. Bring your arms out nice and wide in toward your chest, and then step or jump the feet nice and wide. Just have your hands on your hips, lift up into the chest. Just feel where your feet are on the mat. So without looking, feel where your feet are. Do they feel like they're in line with each other? And if they don't, then adjust. When you stay in this position, observe how the toes play a role in keeping the legs firm and attentive. Turn your left toes in slightly, stamping the big toe into the floor, stretching the little toe side of the foot in away, and then pushing the little toe side of the foot really consciously into the floor so that you suck this outer thigh of that back leg in. Keep that leg firm and rotate the right leg all the way out, and then bring the hips to face the front. So does it feel like you want to bring your hips this way? Or can you rotate the legs outwards? Can you press that little toe side of the right foot into the floor, sucking this outer thigh in? Can you do the same with the other foot? Just have a quick glance, make sure that the heel is in line with the instep or the toes of the back foot. Suck the outer thighs in and then reach over, keeping that back foot really firmly engaged in the pose. Sucking the outer thigh inwards. Come back to the centre, swap the feet around, turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. Stamping the little toes into the floor, sucking the outer thighs in. Come over, just observe how the pose feels for you today, because again, trikonasana, we often start our standing poses with the triangle pose. So this again is a pose that we have done hundreds, thousands of times, but it's a good gauging stick for where you are this morning. Turn the abdomen up to face the ceiling, look up, turn the chest to face the ceiling. And then reach up with the top hand, come back to the centre, bring your feet parallel. And then step or jump your feet back together, come up into Tadasana, lifting in the heart area. Just breathing even, deep inhalations and exhalations. So we can do padangusthasana. So it's a standing forward bend. I'll show you this sideways. You might need, if you know that you can't reach your toes, you might want to put a belt so you can bend your knees to get there. Put a belt around the insides of the big toes and then just have as much of the belt as you need, and then you hinge at the hips like we did in Uttanasana. Have the feet hip width apart. Tighten the kneecaps, turn the fronts of the thighs inwards, tuck the tailbone in. Have your hands on your hips, lift up into your chest, winging the elbows towards each other. And then hinge at the hips, keeping the chest elevating away from the legs, lifting the seat bones, lifting the tailbone, keeping the legs straight. Keep the chest extending away from the hips. Then release the hips with the hands and then put the index finger and the middle finger underneath the big toe. Wrap the thumb around the outside of the big toe. And then stamp the big toe into the floor, but try and rip it out of the floor like you're trying to rip a nail out of the floor. Projecting the chin and the chest forwards. Go back to the legs. Are they working evenly? Project the chin and the chest forwards like you're doing half Uttanasana. Initially keeping the arms straight. Initially projecting the chin and the chest forwards. And then if you can bend your elbows out to the sides and then draw the body through the gap between the legs. Hinging at the hips. Stamping the heels down. Just acknowledging your resistance and respecting it. And then just gently stretch the chest forwards again, straightening the arms, release the toes, bring your hands into your hips, bend your knees on the way up if you need to, and then come back up into Tadasana. Inner edge of the feet together, lifting up into the chest. Breathing even, deep inhalations and exhalations. Stretch your arms out in front, interlock your fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head, keeping your arms straight, lifting up to the ceiling. Pushing the palms to the ceiling, squeezing the outer elbows in. Keeping those kneecaps activated, keeping the little toes pressing into the floor. So you suck the outer thighs inwards, lifting up like a tube of toothpaste up into the chest, into the hips, up into the abdomen, into the diaphragm region, up into the chest. And then release your arms. Swap the interlock of the fingers so the other index finger is on the top of the stack. Stretch your arms away. Elbows in towards each other. Lift up into the chest. And then gently release your arms, and then just stretch your arms down to the floor, lifting the chest. Just feeling the warmth of the arms, warmth of the neck and the chest. Keeping the legs activated. Just feel how you've brought consciousness into the arms and the chest, and the legs and the hips and the abdomen and the head and the breath. And then just come onto all fours, your hands shoulder width apart. Step back, turn your toes under, push your hands really firmly into the floor, and then come up into dog down. Pushing the palms into the floor, lifting the seat bones away from the heels, pushing the feet into the floor, lifting the seat bones away from the heel, pushing the little toes into the floor, sucking the outer thighs in so you get that tube of toothpaste effect up into the hips, up into the spine. Breathe into both lungs evenly. And out of both lungs evenly. And then come down onto your knees, just sit back on your heels. Just observe your energy, observe the intensity of the energy you released through your practice so far. Just all that energy in the chest and in the legs and in the arms and in the neck and the head. Just listening to the breath. Listening to your energy. And then we're going to come into Adho Mukha Virasana. So push the shins consciously into the floor so that the thighs activate. Try and push the knees away from each other, even though they're kind of stuck to the floor, so that the thighs activate. Lift consciously up into the chest and then stretch forwards. So observe how maybe this feels different, because rather than doing it at the beginning of the class, which we didn't this morning, maybe this feels warmer, a little deeper. So stretch the seat bones down to the heels. Lengthen from the hips into the armpits, into the palms. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Push your palms into the floor and then sit yourself up, lifting up into the chest. Releasing your shoulders. Just listen to the breath. And then sit yourself in cross legs. Hold on to your knees and elevate the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just bring your hands into Namaste for a moment, lifting up into the chest, lengthening from the armpits into the elbows, pushing the elbows towards each other so that you can really create firm contact between the heels of the hands, lengthening the fingers up towards the ceiling, lifting upwards into the chest. And then raise your arms up. Try and keep the palms together. It's not easy, is it? Straighten the arms. Squeeze the outer elbows in. Try and keep those palms firmly together. Try and straighten the arms. Lift up into the chest. And then bring the hands back into Namaste. Push the heels of the hands firmly together. Lengthen the fingertips up to the ceiling. Lift up into the chest. And then just release. Bring your hands onto the knees. Lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards. And then turn to the right side. Just observing how this feels for you now. So it's quite warm today, isn't it? I think the temperature feels kind of quite warm. It's quite stuffy, isn't it? But how does that affect your body? Maybe your body feels warmer. Does that warmth penetrate into the bones, or is it skin deep? Come back to the center. Hold on to the knees, lift up into your chest, and then turn to the left. So how does the pose feel now in comparison with how it felt at the beginning? Do you have the same level of resistance, or is there less? come back to the centre, holding onto your knees, lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down. So we're going to do ubaya padangusthasana. You can just do baddangulyasana if you prefer not to do the next stage. So I'm going to show you this sideways, but you can do it facing me. Just make sure that you're not too close to a wall behind you, because with ubaya padangusthasana there's every chance that you can roll back and you don't want to bang your head. So just sit away from the wall, and then come into baddangulyasana, holding the big toes in the same way that you were holding the big toes in padangusthasana. So the index finger and the middle finger underneath the big toe, the thumb wrapped around the outside of the big toe. Push the heels together, roll onto the front edge of the seat bones, and then lift up into the chest. So you might just want to stay at this stage, just feeling how you connect to the ground, pushing the feet into the floor, lifting the chest out of the hips. So it can be difficult to lift the chest. So if you're in supta baddangulyasana and you feel like you roll back this way, then lifting the chest is really hard. So sit on a lift. But if you sit on a lift, then don't do the next stage. So just sit on a lift, roll forwards, and then lift the chest. So like I say, if you set yourself on a lift, just stay in baddangulyasana rather than doing the next bit, because otherwise you'll have further to fall. So the next stage is just to lean back and then let the knees hover. So again, we want to go from this, we want to lengthen the chest upwards, rolling onto the front edge of the seat bones, lifting up into the chest. Just finding the balance. And then come back down into baddangulyasana. So again, you might just want to stay at that stage. So just being conscious of where your body is today, where your energy is. Just lift up into the chest. If you're going further, just come back and you can just stay balanced. Or you draw the knees together. You keep the feet connected firmly with the hands, and then you lift. You can always thread a belt around the feet if you can't reach. Lifting up into the chest, rolling onto the front edge of the seat bones. And then release. And then come back into just supta baddangulyasana. Just lifting up into the chest. So you might just want to stay here. We're going to do it one more time. You do whichever part of the pose feels right for you. You might just want to balance. You might just want to be in baddangulyasana. So if you can't reach your toes, then use a belt around the outside edge of the feet, and then you just thread the belt out. Try and get the feet high rather than like, it's not really a boat pose. Really connecting if you got hold of the toes, really connecting the toes to the feet, toes to the hands, hands to the feet. Turning the legs like you're doing Tadasana. Okay, and then just gently come down, just down onto your back into supta baddangulyasana. Just letting your back relax into the floor. Just letting the body relax into the floor. Maybe you observe how you've created a little fire in the belly. Just a fire of energy that you can disperse into the legs and up into the chest, into the arms, into the head. Of course, if there's stiffness in your hips, you can put some blocks underneath the thighs. Just listen to the breath as it enters and as it exits. Take holds of the mat either side of the hips. Bring the knees in towards each other, pull the knees in towards the chest, and then stretch your legs up for viparita karahni. And then just bend your knees. Just bring your feet down onto the floor, come up onto your elbows. Make sure you're in a really good straight line right down the centre of your mat. Get your blanket, bring the blanket underneath the back of your neck and the back of your head. If you're wearing glasses, just, if you can, take them off for a moment or two just to help the face to relax. And allow yourself to completely let go. Unhooking the muscles of the arms and the legs. So that in one turn the body becomes heavy on the floor, but in the other you observe your energy radiating from the bones and into the muscles. Bones into the muscles, into the organs, radiating that positive energy out from the bones. Into the flesh and into the skin. Use your in-breath and your out-breath to distribute that feeling of energetic lightness down into the toes. Into the fingertips. And up into the head. Basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. And when you're ready, just wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers, bringing yourself back into this pose of sirvasana. And then bend your knees, bring your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then stretch out the top leg, come back up into a seated position. Just final cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Just breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees. Palms facing upwards, connecting the tip of the index finger with the thumb, stretching the other fingers away from the palms. Just a gesture of peacefulness and wisdom that we can take into our day. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. So hopefully you feel as though you've really given yourself lots of positive energy in the heart area. Giving yourself lots of good energy to put into your day. So thank you very much for joining me.